Hey guys, this is Jaimy, and I wanted to show you my rendition of Jack Skellington made from a pumpkin that you can buy from a craft store. I mounted it to a piece of PVC and a board. The first thing I had to do was draw Jack's eyes and mouth and nose. This is the way I see him. You know, yours may look a little different, but this is the expression that I wanted to capture my Jack to look like. The nose and mouth and eyes had to be, in sequence, and that's the first part of it. The second part of it is to cut out what you have drawn. It's just like a regular pumpkin to me. I wanted to make it kind of special because Jack is the pumpkin king. I wanted to make Jack out of a pumpkin. I see many people do it different ways, but I've never seen anyone do it with a pumpkin. So this is the Jack so far, but I've cut his eyes and nose out as well. I began cutting his mouth. I'm using an X-Acto knife, which is my preference when you're cutting these particular pumpkins, and they work pretty well depending on the blade that you use. Once I had the mouth, the eyes, and the nose, nostrils cut, I wanted to examine it and make sure that the mouth was wide enough, and it seemed to work out okay so far. The next part was placing duct tape over the head. I just used simple white duct tape. I cut down the pumpkin stem on top of his head because this character is going to be. That's the duct tape I use. This character is going to be white, obviously, and I use white duct tape. You can use any color you want, but you're going to have to wind up with white. So once I got that done, I began to form his eye with what is typically called paper clay or air dry clay. It's a paper clay. You can get it from any art store that you go to, and it forms pretty decently. It's pretty simple, and I have started on his expressions, as you can see. But it's up to this point, it's just his left eye. Secondly, the right eye. I completed the right eye. The same deal with paper clay. I formed it around the design that I had already cut, and it seemed to be coming along so far. There's a few touch-ups here. The next part of it is his nose. Jack has a very distinctive nose, and as you can see, the character begins to come to life when you put together the nose and the eyes as well. He's it's gonna have to smooth it out a little bit. The following part is his mouth. He has a very distinctive mouth, and I had to to form the clay. Up to this part, what you're seeing now is clay on top of the pumpkin. I'm going to give you some looks at different angles the way this thing looks. If I can just not have my camera go all over the place. But this is a side view of it. You can see the tape still under it. It's a pumpkin. There's no smoke and mirrors. I formed the clay over it. It's an air dry clay. It shouldn't take that long for it to dry. I gave this kind of I would say a day for it to actually dry and and kind of take its form. The next step after this, I covered it with something called plaster cloth. Now, plaster cloth is typically used to form casts on your hand. You break your arm, they put a cast over it. This is the stuff that they use for that. I wanted the prop to be durable and something that if it fell, it wouldn't crack open or and destroy the prop. So I formed the plaster cloth. I put probably about 3 to 4 coats of plaster cloth over it, and it's still wet right now, but you'll get a chance to see what it looks like when it dries. Notice I only did the upper part of the lip. or actually I should say the mouth. This is a plaster cloth. After it is dried, I've cut the mouth out of my Jack, and it's dry, and I'm going to have to at some point sand it down a little more so it'll be smoother. Plaster cloth you can sand. This is the mouth part. I cut it out. I actually cut out a little more on the bottom of it, so this character is going to be talking. So I'm going to put in servos and stuff like that and make him talk. But as you can see, he's ready to talk. Hi there. See? The next part is plaster clothing the bottom jaw and attaching it to the head. I also put a hole in the back of Jack's head so I can place the servos inside of his head. And the bottom jaw has been now plaster cloth, and all it has to do is dry. And from this point, I will paint him. Okay, the plaster cloth is dry. I've now painted Jack, and he is pretty much, at least the head of Jack is ready for action. You can see that I've placed hinges on his jaws because, like I mentioned before, I am gonna this is going to be a talking prop, and he will be moving as well. The back of the head I've closed up. I've added plaster cloth on top of that, so it is hardened, and at this point he seems to come to life. I've also added his body, which I've made out of PVC, and I've also attached the PVC to a plank, a 2x2 plank, which he's standing on. Jack himself stands about 6. This character is probably about 6'5", bending. He's a pretty tall guy. I also added a reindeer motor. I want to see his mouth moving, and not only is he going to be talking, but I want to give him a little bit more life by making his head move back and forth. So this is my Jack up to this point, and I will have part 2 for you if you're still interested in it at this point. Okay?